Okay, welcome everybody to the 4 p.m. City Council work session. All council members are present with the exception of Vice Chair White, who I believe will be joining us shortly. We'll go ahead and review our meeting, our 6 p.m. City Council meeting. We have some minutes for approval. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to look through those. And then we'll move into our public hearing. We have a proposed partial street vacation, Cahoon Street between F Avenue and G Avenue. And we'll have that presented by Barton, right? And then we'll...
Sorry, Chair,
oh,
could we have just a brief discussion about this?
Oh, yes, yes.
So there's not an ordinance, which means that if you would like to approve this, we'd have to extend, would probably be the best bet to a date in the future when they could bring back an ordinance. However, in talking with the administration, they've also had some additional discussions with the developer, well, the petitioner, I should say, and there's some ongoing discussion. So if you might want to request some additional information about that, so we could also extend and then have them bring back some additional information. Because right now you have the request for a street vacation, but that's all. It's sort of only a partial picture of what might want to happen. And if they're going to request a rezone or something like that, you might want to consider, if you're interested in considering that in the future, to bring it back.
I was actually going to ask about that, just what have been the ongoing discussions with that, but we should talk about it in a different work session. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Just because I don't think the administration's ready to talk about all that, just that they are having discussions.
Yeah.
And they may be able to make something work out there. So
Will they be disclosing that tonight? About what discussions have happened since our last work session?
well, I'm not sure that they're ready to do that. So I guess you could extend and say, we'd like more information, or you can just take action on it and then it'd be up to the petitioner to
Okay,
either bring it back, which would mean they'd have to file another petition
Yeah.
or
okay, all right,
something
thanks.
like that.
So that was my question. Because the request is to deny it,
Right.
right? So
Well,
if
the
we-
Well, the
recommendation,
or the
recommendations
recommendation,
and-
sorry,
yeah,
the recommendation is to deny it. So if we follow that, then, and they were to bring it back, then they would have to resubmit and start over,
Correct.
correct? So,
so I
Just-
don't know if Glenn or Steve want to weigh in on this at all.
Rather extend it so they
Yeah,
don't have to
exactly. That
reapply if
is-
Yeah.
they're getting more information.
can we extend it for like 6 months?
Extend is, we don't even
Until
give
we
them a
want,
date.
yeah.
so-
Yeah, it's not even
Okay.
extend.
Yes, so if you extend, what will happen is that will allow some time for staff to have a better understanding of exactly what's going on. We initially, when we heard there were some conversations, we felt we reached out to the petitioner and said, hey, are you sure you don't want to hold off until you have those conversations, anticipating this same thing happening? So if you extend, what we will follow up with the petitioner as well as other staff. And then in the next meeting, I guess it would be on the 12th, we will just give you an update of what that is. And then you could then decide to put it on another work session after that.
Yeah.
Or sorry, not work session, a regular council meeting after that.
Okay. thank
Or
you
it
for
could
that.
be a
Or a
work
work
session.
session, yeah.
Yeah, just a reminder, when you extend, then in the next meeting, next 1 or 2 meetings, council staff will come back and present a proposed timeline. That doesn't mean we'll have a date certain, but it'll give you a better idea of how much time we're looking at.
Okay. Thank
We'll
you.
still have the public hearing tonight so people
Yeah.
can give comments.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll have the reports from the Planning Commission on the proposed rezone on 218 Chester Street. We'll also receive public input on that item before entertaining any motions to approve or on that ordinance. Then we will hear proposed zone text amendments for group dwelling units, which we've had some conversations about. We'll also receive public input on that item. And then the last item before public comments would be report from administration, proposed Synchrony bank line and of credit reapproval. Which we will be talking about in this meeting as well, right? So, yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
So just on the Chester Street rezone, I work right there, and so I've had conversations with a number of the people that are there. And I know what they're looking for is just a rezone of that area. Some of the residents that I've spoken with don't want that to happen. They want to have individual housing projects going there and sell it that way. That's not part of the rezone. The rezone is just to take it out of a commercial rezone. Is that right? Or is it?
Let's see, on this one so there's two, one on 7th Street, which is near your business.
The Chester Street.
And then
one?
there's Chester Street, which is also nearby.
Yep.
The Chester is not currently commercial. It's currently R16.
R1, yeah, okay.
And so that the proposed rezone is to rezone to the new
R2.
R2S.
Yeah.
And the one on 7th Street is a number of zones being
Yeah,
affected.
there's a C3 and an R16.
Right.
So there's two different zones that it's gonna be.
So they both kind of came at us, but it's kind of easy to kind of mix those up. But yeah, So,
If I'm not mistaken, the rezone takes place first, and then a proposal for development will follow.
correct.
So we're not seeing exactly what's gonna be built at that location at this point in time.
Right. Other than just the rezone R2S is sort of signaling what they're looking to want to do.
They did
Yeah,
it in the
and they-
concept
and I
plan,
think-
if I remember right.
Yeah, they did do.
Yeah.
So is it possible for them to do both at one time? To do the rezone and the proposed development plan?
So with their rezone petition, they have submitted a kind of a concept plan that shows what the project could look like if the rezone to R2S is approved. But is your question, can they rezone it and get like a subdivision approval at the same time?
Yes.
My understanding, the way the ordinances are written is no, it's two separate processes.
No.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but the subdivision process would not come back to the council, right? That's just handled administratively.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, any other items or discussion on our agenda for this evening? Okay, we are pleased to have Troy Galentine here with us to present as the new Executive Director of Goal Foundation. So we'd like to invite you to come up either here or if you want to control the slides, then up on this end. Yeah, this will be the Goal Foundation Annual Report. I can send the rest down. And then if you'll just hit your microphone on, there we go. There we go. Now people online can hear you.
Is this the mouse or?
Either the arrows or the mouse on the.
This mouse works for me. Oops. I go back. How do I do that? This one there. Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm the executive director for Goal Foundation. I just started recently. I'm the new Eric, they keep calling me. So if you're familiar with Eric Bauman, I'm in his shoes now. So I guess a quick history on myself. I've been in the real estate space for about 20 years. And still hold a license with my real estate firm up in Layton. But Goal Foundation is it's more than my 9 to 5. It's my full time. It's everything I'm doing right now, and absolutely loving it. My history, rooted in Ogden. I live in Riverdale right now, but been involved with events of large and small scale. I started with the event space, really with the Snow Basin Olympics in 2002. I started in like 99, worked on the race department under their guys there, and became really passionate about how events are ran and done safely and at large scale and everything in between. I've been on the board of directors for the Snow Basin Sport Education Foundation, which is the Snow Basin ski team, and helped operate a lot of their local events up at the Snow Basin Ski Resort. In addition, I've helped host some cycling events in Montana. So it's kind of my background in the event space and what drove me to Goal when the opportunity as executive director came up. So I met with Eric and just got really passionate about what Goal does and how I could contribute there. So I made a pretty big pivot in life from the real estate space to this, but definitely loving it. Was set up with a really amazing team for success. So what you're going to see here is a little bit of our mission is to inspire the greater Ogden community and its visitors to get out and live by participating, volunteering, and spectating at recreational and cultural events, programs, and activities. We envision a greater Ogden community that thrives economically and is healthier in mind, body, and spirit. So all of our events, we kind of run through a pillar of, or several different pillars, 5 different pillars that we evaluate against to decide if that's an event or a product that we want to pursue. Does it meet these objectives of getting the community out and living and engaging in volunteer activities and opportunities. So for looking forward to 2024 and 23, 23, our events were the Winter Running Series. We held a 5K, a 10K, 10 miler, and a half marathon. And the dates are listed there. Our marathon from last year was these are our 2024 events. February 17th, we did our 5K just recently. We've got a 10K coming up on March 2nd. March 16th, we have a 10 miler. And April 6th, we have our half marathon. Then, of course, the marathon is on May 18th with our Fun and Fitness Expo on the 17th. And inside that marathon, we offer a full marathon, half marathon, a relay, 12K, and a 5K. And then the Finish Line Festival, and probably most fun part of that is our Kids K, where last year we had over 500 kids participate in the Kids K. Have a gracious sponsor help support that, and it's probably one of the most emotional components of the event. Actually, seeing the kids jamming out with their little capes, and it's only 1K. Well, it's even a little bit less than that, but it's quite inspiring. They get to come and run back through the full marathon finish and into the Finish Line Festival, which is, if you haven't been there, it's quite set up and a pretty grand celebration of the events. The other big signature event we're going to host this year is called the Northern Utah Trail Fest. That's in conjunction with the Trails Foundation of Northern Utah, as well as Weber County Parks and Rec. We have a 3, 6, and 9-hour trail run and a 3 or 6 hour mountain bike race. And we're navigating right now to actually add on a Friday event. This can be kind of a vertical challenge Friday night in the running series, and what they call a Nutty Night Ride with another nonprofit that's going to have a kind of an evening ride that's get people ready for the Saturday event. And then on Sunday, we're planning to host what they call a shakeout run on Sunday, and we're looking to bring in a high-level athlete, national athlete that can kind of lead that out and have a small speech and some things to inspire some of the runners that were there for that weekend. The festival's growing pretty substantially. We anticipate 350 or so participants this year. We were at about 250 last year, but it's inclusive of all the things you'd expect at a festival: fun, food, games, kids activities, hikes, astrology demonstrations. We partner with quite a few other nonprofits in the area to make that a really good, fun success, and it's open to all public for free. So the Goal staff, I'm again super blessed to have an amazing staff of 5 that I work with. So right now I've got Alex Docta, he's our operations director. Brooke Thompson, she does all our volunteer and programming, so she's our volunteer programming manager. Cecily Kiss is our community outreach manager, and Kirsty is our admin and office manager, apologize. And then Isabel Geddes, we just hired her, and she is taking care of all of our marketing and communications. So really talented group of people. I'd like to say I don't have to do much because they do everything, but they're really talented, and I'm super blessed to have them in the office every day. Community impact in 23, we were able to host 34 free community events. Those are things like our yoga in the park, community hikes, and quite a few other products and things that we package together. So our signature events help support some of our other community engagement plans and opportunities. It's an area we're really passionate about, is being able to offer low or no cost programs for people to get engaged with the outdoor activities. We offer a snowshoe program, for instance, where we coordinate with the Ogden Nordic nonprofit, and we bring the Golden Hour Senior Center up and get them to snowshoes for free, and offer that subsidized as well to other portions of the community. Our green initiatives last year, we picked up 4,800 pounds of trash from the Ogden River, and we were able to plant 46 large trees. And this year we hope to reduce the trash we pick up, because hopefully there's just not as much, but we're going to make that a mission to clean up all the trash we can, and then grow our tree planting initiatives as well. We work with Dan Daly from the Dancing Moose Farms up there to make that happen. So we're pretty proud of that. Another area of success was our youth camp scholarships. We awarded over $2,100 in scholarships, and $5,450 in group grants were awarded. And on our budget this year, we've got a little over double in scholarships earmarked for this year, as well as coordinated directly with a couple other organizations to help deploy those. So again, our mission to be able to get people outside into activities at a subsidized or no cost opportunity is really at the heart of what we're trying to do. Another initiative is our shoe program. We were able to donate 122 pair of athletic shoes last year and 10 pairs of hiking poles for our senior group. And same thing this year. We're on target to almost double our shoe donation program this year, and likely we'll do the same with our hiking poles. And that's done through donations and plenty of other community support to help us get that done. So pretty exciting. Last year, we engaged with over 1,273 volunteers who contributed 6,134 total volunteer hours. So although I've got an amazing team, it's the volunteer support and that volunteerism of the community that really makes what we do work and what we do happen in the way that it does. And this is all the way to our free programs, up to the marathon, everything in between. We have an amazing set of people that come over and over again, and some people come once, but some people volunteer for almost every single thing we have. So we're really blessed to be able to have that opportunity to engage with those volunteers and continue that spirit. The Ogden Marathon last year, we had 6,310 registrations, and we did sell out. We had about 1,000 increase from 2022, and the impact estimate was about $1.6 million in the Ogden area. So gender breakdown was about 3,000 females, 2,659 males, and about 14 non-binary. So the top states were Utah, Idaho, California, Colorado, and Arizona, but we did procure participants from 48 states and I believe 8 countries total. So it's a pretty broad group of people that come to support the marathon. We were just in Florida, for instance, for a Running USA conference where all the big marathons from the country come and visit and learn all things running. And just about everybody from all the big marathons came over and acknowledged how amazing our marathon was and how they have so many participants that want to come to ours for the scenery and the fact that it's a Boston qualifier and that it's just so well ran that they love coming to Ogden. So it was pretty impressive to have those conversations, and again, seeing people from like Ramos Marathon and stuff like that have ran big races that are well over double our size, well over triple our size, acknowledge how amazing this marathon is here that Ogden puts on. So we talked a little bit about the Kids K. Last year we had 550 kids participate totally for free. So again, just in line with our mission of trying to get people engaged in outdoor activities at low or no cost. That was a huge success for us. I think it grew from the 250, 300 range the year before. And we hope we don't ever have to limit its capacity, but logistics may come into play where we have to do that. But we do expect about that many this year as well. So some of our signature events, we've talked a little bit about, obviously, the marathon. The winter running series was the 5K that I mentioned just recently. So it's essentially a winter running series that's a training path up to the marathon. So we had on Saturday, we had 358 participants run in our 5K. It was great. The weather was cold but beautiful, and I think turned out really, really well. So we're excited to have our next 10K at the same location at Weber State. Again, acknowledging the amazing community partners of Weber State and the Ogden Police Department to help us put that on and make that happen, make success. So we're really excited there. And we have a 10-miler that we're planning to potentially relocate the start, but down by B Street and Envy, down at that space. So we're working out final details there. And then our half marathon that ends up in the valley. So the trail race of the Nut we talked about as well. That's the 3-day festival that is October 4th, 5th, and 6th. Last year we had about 235 participants, and based on our surveys right now, we'll probably end up a little over 325 to 350 in that event this year. So it's pretty steadily growing and having great success. El Doce mountain bike race is currently on the shelf, so we are not going to be running that race this year. But we'll see what the future of it holds. We'll maintain the brand and maintain the event itself, and if we can reposition it or put it back at its current space at Powder Mountain, we will. But right now, that is off the table, and large deliberations through our strategic planning meeting with the board in December led to that decision of redefining our 5 pillars of consideration for an event. It didn't tick all the boxes, and so it allowed us some time to refocus on the efficacy of the marathon, its impact in the community, as well as the P&L for the Goal Foundation to make sure that was best utilized in our other spaces. So the Fun and Fitness Expo is held up at Weber State the day before the marathon, and that's where we have around 60 vendors, 20 or so of which are nonprofits that we cooperate with throughout the year, give them an opportunity to boast their services and products to the people that come through. But that's where all 6,000 of the marathon participants come to pick up their packet and get a swag bag, as well as get information about Ogden and things we offer. And so it's been a really great success up there, and we're currently selling those booths out and getting that all ready to go. Then we also offer a free training clinic inside the marathon. So if you register for the marathon, you get a free coach. Coach Laura drives that program. We offer that as a no-cost service to any participant of the marathon, and that's been a great success so far. Community guided hikes, those are also a no-cost feature. We're going to start those on the first Thursday of April at this point is what we have scheduled, which is expanded from last year. I don't think we started till June last year, so we're going to add a couple months, and we'll run that all the way through October. Pretty excited about having that going on. Yoga in the park we talked about. We did a kids obstacle fun run last year with OCAP, Youth Impact, and Weber Prosperity. And we plan to schedule something similar to that this year in the fall, and continue that as well. So that we talked a little bit about our snowshoe event with the seniors at the Golden Hour Senior Center, and as well as our shoe program with them. The 2023 youth summer camps we offered, we had 8 weeks sessions of mountain biking and indoor rock climbing, had 148 participants and awarded 21 scholarships through that. And then I also spoke about the grant programs that we offered up $5,450 in grants to other local organizations as well for their services during our 2023 events. So we're pretty proud of that. And a little highlight again on the green initiative, which gains traction every year, it seems like. And this year we have big plans along with our partners there to expand that in both Ogden Valley and down in the city to bring more trees and add more green initiatives to the offering. So community programming for 2024 will continue the community hikes, the Golden Hour Senior Center hikes, yoga in the park, OCAP Fun Run is on the schedule. We already did our snowshoe event, which was amazing. We have a partnership with Ogden Untamed that we're ironing out final details now, which will offer some scholarship opportunities for kids to engage at the Ogden Untamed. Our Kids K at the Finish Line Festival, training clinics through the marathon. Our Spoketacular event is also on the list. We didn't do it last year, but we plan to do that this year, where we solicit bikes that can be donated to the Ogden Bike Collective, as well as create some funds and opportunities awareness around the use of helmets and riding bicycles. So really excited about that. The Legacy Club dinner, I haven't talked much about that, but the Ogden Marathon includes a Legacy Club, and that will be on the 13th of May. Again, following that will be the May 17th Finish Line Festival. Sorry, that's actually should just be the expo. And then on the 18th is the Ogden Marathon, which is inclusive of the Finish Line Festival. And then 4 through 6 is the NUP. So in summary, that's most of it there. We do have a partner spotlight I'd love to talk about briefly is Youth Impact. They've been really integral in helping us get a more diversified group of people engaged in our program. So we partner with them on a few things this coming summer. YMCA is going to be driving a multi-day backpacking opportunity, and Youth Impact is going to be providing some transportation as well as help us negotiate or navigate the award of some scholarships to some of those kids who want to engage in that backpack program. It should be really interesting 3 to 5 day backpack trips led by YMCA. So it's going to be a really cool and unique space for those kids to be. We spoke a little bit earlier about our volunteers and how important they are to our success. And I just want to give a quick props to Bob May, if you've ever been at any one of our events, I can almost guarantee you've seen Bob at our events. He comes and literally comes at the start, stays till the very end, and it doesn't matter what event or opportunity is. Bob leans in, engages, and makes it happen for us. So we couldn't do it without Bob, and of course all our other volunteers. But we always try and give one solid spotlight, and that's Bob. In addition to our volunteers, we have a lot of our sponsors and supporters. So they've listed those here. Weber County Ramp Grant, of course, Weber County Tourism Works and the Utah Office of Tourism are spaces where we get some of our funding from. And then you can see the list of our title, official, and supporting sponsors as well. So we have other donors as well, Snow Basin Ski Resort, as well as the Young Subaru Share the Love. And United Way. So they've all been generous enough to give us partnering funds and donations that help us run our programs for free and or subsidized. So pretty proud of that. Community partners, Life Elevated Utah, Ogden, Utah, of course, Ogden Untamed, Weber County, Ramp Grants, Weber County Parks and Rec, Trails Foundation, Visit Ogden, Weber State University, and then there's a long list of some others: Youth Impact, Boys and Girls Club, OCAP, Weber Prosperity, Golden Hour Senior Center, the Front Climbing Club, Ogden Bicycle Collective, Treehouse Museum, OFOAM, Utah Humanities, Van Sessions, Ogden Nature Center, Starry Tours, Weber State Storytelling, and Weber State Outdoor Rec. And it's likely there's others, but those are the ones that hit the list here today. So we're a nonprofit ran by a board of directors, and here is the list of them. We're again grateful for the talent that comes to the board to help give us direction and help make the things happen that we do put together. So, and in short, there's a quick pick of the Kids K. So again, if you're around on the 18th, even if you don't watch the marathon, I promise it'll be entertaining. You'll watch the Kids K. So and that's all I have. Hopefully I didn't speak too fast, but I'm open to questions. If anyone has any.
Thanks, Troy. Any questions for Troy? Or comments or discussion? Go ahead.
I saw you have a partnership with the Trails Foundation of Northern Utah. I wondered if Weber Trails and Ogden Trails people, or if you have partnerships with those guys and.
Yeah,
Can
we're
we
always looking to
coordinate?
form partnerships where they make sense, of course. So Trails Foundation in Northern Utah and we partner on the NUT Festival, the Northern Utah Trail Fest. So it's a pretty specific partnership there. And I think one of the things we'd love to do is explore more partnerships that make sense to leverage other people's expertise and resources where we both can contribute and have better impact on the community and access to the outdoor trail networks. So
Okay.
yeah, right now we don't specifically, but I'm sure we've had history in those arenas and always open to the
It just does
conversation.
seem like it would make sense. So
Yeah.
that's why I asked. I thought
For sure.
maybe we gotta introduce you guys or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'd love to. I think almost at least weekly, I get introduced to another opportunity with a community partner that, has some kind of mission in line with what we do, and or we can maybe support on the event production side, and they have something else they bring to the table, and we can collaborate and make something work. So we're always open to exploring opportunities for the future.
Cool. You?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I just appreciate all these partnerships that you have in the community, and I know it'll continue. And the one that really stands out to me, and I've seen a lot of posts about, and I walk by there all the time, is with the Golden Hours. I just think that's a really great partnership, and appreciate that so much.
Yeah, it was really cool. I think our snowshoe event, we reserved the first half of our spots for the snowshoe event, specifically for Golden Hour Senior Center. And I think they filled the spots in like 48 hours. They were so excited to come and engage with it. So we may expand that next year, do either multiple events to have them up more often. And it was really cool for them as well, because the way we organized it this year, last year they had their own event that was just the Golden Hour Senior Center for that day. And this year we broke it to where we coupled it with our public as well. So we had 2 sessions on the same day. And so they were kind of mixed in with all of our other groups of people. And it was really cool because we saw people that had never been on snowshoes ever in their life, up to people who run marathons and are, really into the outdoors and just came because they love to be outdoors and support the initiative. And so it was really cool and pretty touching to see everything come together, and and again, that cooperation that they had to get up there and make it happen. So it's cool.
I just have a quick comment. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see that you're continuing the volunteers and really supporting that. We might have a big event coming in the next 10 years, and it'd be great to continue to get our volunteer hours up and going. So,
Yeah.
good luck on that.
Yeah, and the team's super behind that as well. We don't know what the future holds for, goal and any involvement in any future event, we'll call it at this point. But I hope we have, some heavy involvement there. The roots of Goal were born from the Weaver Cultural Legacy Foundation, and I have a handful of friends who started that board back when it was started. And, it really, our roots lie in the volunteerism spirit and how it can impact the community. So it does run pretty rich in the Goal philosophy and strategy. So glad to be a part of it.
Good job.
All right. I just would like to say thanks again as well. And congrats on your position. I love Gold Foundation. I love the events. I've participated in most of them. And I think also on the volunteer side, it can't be understated there how good, Ogden just really is home to some amazing volunteers. But Gold Foundation does a terrific job of helping the volunteers feel valued in all the things that you offer, T-shirts, and there's food for those that are helping out on the marathon, and just a lot of great things, and even post event celebrations. And so thanks for all you do, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and look forward to seeing you guys out at any and all the events.
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have Jeremy Smith, our Community Development Manager, to come and talk to us about the proposed Synchrony Bank line of credit reapproval.
Hey, hello, everyone. Glad to be here to talk to you about our Synchrony Bank line of credit renewal. This is going to be familiar to some. This is something that we've been doing for a long time, but every couple of years we have to renew it. So Synchrony Bank and Ogden City have a relationship where we use them for construction financing for our infill housing and renovation resale programs. So this line of credit started back in 2011. We had one before that with another institution, and then we used Fannie Mae for the same thing before that. So since then, since 2011, $15.3 million worth of construction financing has been used through that line, and that equals about 121 homes have been completed with this financing. And because it meets a CRA requirement for Synchrony, we have some benefits as far as discounted terms from that. So the terms are laid out here. The line is for $1,400,000. It's a revolving line of credit and you can use it for 2 years, and every 2 years we have to renew it. So the interest is based on, or it's proposed to be based on the secured overnight financing rate, also known as SOFR, plus 175 basis points. This is different from our previous agreement where Synchrony used BSBY, short for Bloomberg. Oh, I forgot the acronym. It's Bloomberg's security. I'll have to look it up.
Make it up.
I know, I'm trying to think, it's like, man, there's something good here. I do have it in here, but it's Bloomberg's index that, that index is going away. So before we use Bloomberg, or Synchrony used Bloomberg, they used LIBOR. Probably familiar with that one. That had problems and was discontinued. One of the replacement options was this BSBY through Bloomberg. That has met the same fate now as LIBOR. So that's had issues. And so Synchrony is opting for the industry standard index, which is SOFR, if that makes sense. Okay. The existing security, we do have to have some money set aside as a deposit. It's $350,000 that is currently there. That will just remain in place. And so, and then when we borrow funds away from this line of credit, that 1.4 million, we use it to build the home. As soon as we sell the home, we repay the loan and any interest that goes along with it. So that's the process. It's just something, like I said, we do every couple of years, and we're due again. So Staff's recommending that you renew this agreement. There may be a little difference on this one as opposed to previously. This is our 5th renewal with this agreement. In just my discussions with the staff at Synchrony Bank, they said, well, we could just do another renewal where it's just basically an addendum to the agreement, or we could just reset it. So we're not just doing addendums perpetually forever. And that it's really up to their attorneys. There's no change in any of the terms or things. It's just a contracting format at that point. So the resolution we're proposing would accommodate either of those options.
I was gonna ask that question. The every 2 years, is that based on our regulations or is that based on Synchrony's?
It's Synchrony's. I mean, it's the
Okay.
agreement we have with them.
Yeah.
And that's just industry standard that every 2 years they like to, hey, let's take a look at this, see if everybody's still happy and go forward. And they've been a great partner with us. They really, really like working with us and love what we're doing for the city, as well as it checks a lot of boxes for them for their CRA requirements. And so it's worked out well. But happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
I just devil's advocate kind of a question. If we didn't redo this, what changes would administration make? What would we do differently? How would that all?
Well, it would be problematic for a couple of things if we didn't have this. We use this fund for all of our infill homes. And so we would not be able to build those homes without additional just general fund or something to help finance the construction of that. So it allows us to build homes without getting city resources involved. The only city resources we have involved right now is at 350,000.
Yeah.
So
Well, I guess that's maybe kind of what I was asking
Yeah.
is would we replace it some other way? Or
Would-
would we,
yeah.
or would we just abandon some of these things at this?
you'd either have to abandon the program, so you'd no longer be able to build homes, or you would need to replace it with some other.
Understand, I'm not
sorts of up-
suggesting. that
No, I
we
know.
do
I'm
that,
just
I
gonna say, if you don't do it, this is what's gonna happen. So.
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah.
I really appreciated the Synchrony deal. You know, we personally dealt with them. My family has, so, and they've been a good bank, so. And the city's done a lot of good things with that line of credit, so. But I just wondered if, I just thought, well, you know,
Absolutely.
as a taxpayer advocate, what would we do? So.
Good question.
In the environment that is higher interest rates, have we shopped for lenders at all at this point before we re-engage with Synchrony?
We haven't like aggressively shopped. I have done an analysis of what is out there. So if we were to go out there and do it, typically, construction financing, we do get a big discount for the CRA thing. And whether other lenders would do that, they may be able to match it. They probably won't be able to beat it. So just for an example, if you went to, there's a lender out there that does line of credit loans, and typically most line of credits would use, they'll do a prime plus a percentage, right? So prime right now, I think was at around 8%. And so if you do that plus the basis points, you're going to be closer to 10%. With Synchrony, right now we get, based on SOFR, which is around, that index around 5%, plus a 1.75, we're under 7. So it's significantly, but, and that may flow. You may be able to match that with other lenders. The big discount we get with them is through there's no fees on top of that. So, which is huge. I mean, that can be 2, 3 to 5% on top of that. So they don't do that. They require a minimum, that deposit up front. And so we've been happy with it. We feel it's more than competitive for the industry if we were to go out and really shop this.
So is that $350,000 handed to them? Are they in possession of that money for their investment
No,
purposes?
we hold that. We have that in a bank account here at the city.
Okay,
Yeah, it just has to be set aside in case, something happened that we have to.
yeah, I just was
If I can
curious as
see.
to whether that was, they were levering that for
No,
their own
that's ours and
benefit.
we get the interest off of it.
Okay, thank you.
I kind of, sorry, I just have a follow-up to that. I hadn't really thought of this before, but, I'm not an expert in the space, but, what would prevent us from just having our own revolving fund of $1.4 million? I mean, we have a $200 million budget. What prevents us from doing that ourselves?
I think it's just opportunity costs mostly. So there's nothing. I mean, you could set up your own revolving line of credit that would tie up those funds that you wouldn't use somewhere else. So we've chosen in the past to use this line of credit so that those funds can be used elsewhere. We pay the interest on it, which is pretty minor. It has been previously. It's gotten a little more as interest rates have gone up, but it allows you to take, general fund or whatever else you would use for that city line of credit and apply it to other things.
And then just to follow up to that, so is the person borrowing or the person purchasing the new home, are they paying back the interest or we pay the interest?
So it's paid out of the proceeds of sale. So
Okay.
whatever they buy the home for, a
We
piece of
pay
that
out.
comes out and pays that interest.
And then where are some of the projects that Ogden City is currently working on with these homes?
So they're throughout East Central. That's historically where we've done most of these type of projects. Currently, we have a new subdivision that we're starting. We're just bidding out a couple new homes there, and that's 2300 in Quincy. So we'll have a couple homes in there. We just finished 2 on Monroe, 28 block of Monroe. And then sometimes we'll use them on a renovation resale projects. We haven't had to do that. We've had enough of our federal funds to cover the construction costs for that. So the majority of these funds have been used for our infill, our new homes. Where construction costs have escalated, we've had to use other sources to try and get everything done that we have in the past.
Is there a way you can describe how engaged this money is? We're paying interest on it, whether it's being used in the marketplace or not. So what's the churn on this money? In 2 years, how many times will we turn over $1.4 million?
It's a good question. We typically don't have that all lent out at once. Right, currently, we have nothing out right now. Okay, we did 2 homes over the past 2 years. We used to be able to do much more with this, but because costs are so high, you can do about 3 homes at a time.
Right.
Max. It just does, it costs that much to build a house, so we don't like to leverage it out max it out every time. In case we have change orders, those type of things, we typically try and stick to a 2-home turnaround. So we've done a handful over the past few years. We expect that pace to continue unless something drastic were to change with construction costs and that type of thing.
And that project, that cul-de-sac up on Quincy is the next one. Will that include the renovation of the older brick?
It will.
A
Yeah, that's
home
part
there.
of it.
Okay.
Yep, that's actually the first one. We just finished bidding that out. It's under contract and
Oh, good.
it's underway. Yeah.
As a quick follow-up, if we had more money, would we be able to do more houses?
We'd be able to do them quicker. Yeah.
And is this an opportunity to ask for more money? more
We
line of
could
credit?
negotiate that. That would, I think this year is probably not a need for that with what we have coming online. It may be in the next year, depending on which projects are coming down the pipe.
So we could do that next year. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
an opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to do it now.
No, that was just an amount we came and agreeing with. This is what we would need to really get the projects done that we have. It used, like I say, it used to do a lot more. I mean, when we were doing Ogden, we were doing we could do 4 homes at a time then. Times have changed.
Is this the money that you would use for that North Jackson Quality Neighborhoods project or?
Yes, if the city's the one that's a developer on there and it falls into our program, this is exactly what we use it for.
I see. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Then you mentioned that a lot of these projects are infill. So these are homes that you're developing on property that the city already owns or is purchasing or has purchased?
Both, all the above. So most of these, like the one I just talked about, those are ones that we purchased the property and we were building homes on it. Yeah, moving forward. So we have some where we bought land. Councilman Hire referred to one up by Jackson, 605 North Jackson. That's several acres of land that the city has geared up and narrowing in on developing. That would be.
And then one other follow-up question,
Mhm.
does that have anything to do like with the Taylor property? I know the city had a right to purchase the Taylor Canyon School
Oh, from
property.
the school district? No, we don't have any, nothing on this so far would be locked into something like that. But it could, potentially if the city were to buy more property, this line of credit could be used to help build homes on whatever is coming our way. So
And what's the city's interest in that type of property?
we're always interested, right? It's just that depending on if everyone else is. So it's just kind of we measure it as it comes.
So just real clarification, the Taylor Canyon, that's not been surplus, correct?
No, I
think
think they've talked, they've
they've talked
abandoned
about
it,
it,
but
but I
there's
don't think
no,
it hasn't come to the
we've
city
not
yet,
been
so
approached by the school
school district
district
on
yet,
that one.
like this is ready to sell.
But the city has first right on that property?
If the school district does a surplus of the property, then the city and the county have that.
And then it comes up and we have to arm wrestle with the county. If they want it, then if we both want it, I guess then it's a bidding thing, but
It's the same process. We went through this, I guess it's been a couple of years. So we bought a piece of property from the city that's going to expand the 4th Street Ballpark. That was
School.
surplus school property, and we also bought the property on North Jackson. So those were the two. There was one other property that was surplus that we decided not to move forward with.
Feels like a couple of years, but that was last year.
Was it?
Yeah,
It was just
that
last
was
year,
last
yeah.
Yeah. All right.
What's the opposite of time flies?
Very good. Okay, so this will be on our agenda this afternoon or this evening, I guess. So we'll have you back.
Okay.
And thank you. Up next, we have Barton Brierly to come and talk to us about the short-term rental ordinance amendments.
Good evening, counselors. Thank you. Okay. So this is a proposal that's coming to you. It's a staff proposal. It's been through the planning commission's recommending approval of this to amend our short-term rental ordinance. So there we go. So just the current status, we do have a short-term rental ordinance. You are required to get a permit in order to rent out your house overnight to visitors. The requirement is in single-family zones. We only allow owner-occupied short-term rentals. So if you go down to Arizona for the winter and want to rent out your home for an evening or a month or something like that, you can do that under short-term rental. In multiple family zones, we allow them 1 per block. They're prohibited downtown, and there is a licensing and permitting process for them.
can I ask a question before you get too
Yeah.
much further? We, in the past, the legislature kind of made it very difficult for us to enforce because they made it harder for us to go
Yes.
find them. Is anything changed in that arena to this point?
No, you can't enforce based on someone's advertising. You can't go to VRBO and find somebody's address and say, oh, you're renting it out. There are other ways that you can get around that.
And of course, you could respond to complaints and things of that
Yes.
nature.
Yes.
I guess it's just would be hard to say, well, it's a short-term rental versus something else. That's hard to identify, isn't it?
Yeah, that's always it's a just factual thing that you got to establish that. And there's ways you can do that. We have a company we work with, Granicus, that helps us in identifying.
So I
illegal
guess that
short-term
leads to the
rentals.
next part of my question is these licenses that are required for these, based on what we do know, how much of that are we losing out on because we can't enforce?
They're probably, I'd say 5% of the short-term rentals are actually licensed, so thousands and thousands of dollars.
That's what I thought you were gonna say.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But it's not, and I apologize, I could be wrong, but weren't we told before that that's calculated based on the booking agents? It's not, the sales tax is not based on something else?
I think Rich is talking about the licensing
Yeah, I'm
of.
talking
Oh, the
about the
licensing.
licensing,
Oh, I see
yeah.
what you're saying. Okay,
and because of
yeah.
licensing,
Yeah.
that's when we get TRT and some of
Right,
those other
right.
things.
Okay, I
that
get what you're
should be
saying, yeah.
flowing into the
Mhm.
city that
Mhm.
that are
Yeah.
just kind of happening because it's under the.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
get what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the TOT were probably losing tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of that.
Just
No.
to follow up on that, just in my mind. So if we were to follow, or if we were to act on a complaint, someone complained, we go, we find out it's a short-term rental. Is obtaining a license part of their penalty? Do we know?
Well, they could be cited for running one illegally, and they wouldn't be able to run it until they got a license. So yes.
Okay.
It's up to you. Don't look at me.
Let's continue with the conversation and then, yeah, we'll get some clarification. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Fortunate to have Sarah here with us. Yeah.
So why are we proposing the changes that we're proposing? This really started with this owner occupancy requirement. The current code says in order to be an owner occupied unit, it must be your primary residence for 8 months of the year. And the question was, well, how do we determine that? We've had complaints where the neighbor says, well, they don't live there. They're operating one, they don't live there. So we go knock on the door and the owner's there. And then they call back, well, they don't live there. And we knock on the door and the owner's not there. Did we prove that they're there 8 months of the year or not? And unless we're there every day checking on whether they're living there, it's really impossible to enforce this 8-month per year residency. That's the number one reason why we're coming forward with a proposal to change. So what we're proposing is that we take out that owner occupied must be primary residence for 8 months of a year and just say, when you apply, you have to show us 3 forms of ID that says you live there. Show us your a bill, show us your driver's license, your tax return, or whatever. We need 3 things that say that you live there. And if you show us that, then you're owner occupied. And this is something you have to renew each year to do it. But that way, when the neighbor comes and complains, we just say they gave us the information, and so it's owner occupied. That's the biggest change that we're hoping to make in all this. While we were doing that, we went through a bunch of other things to try to solve some issues that we've had in enforcement. The number one complaint we get is parking. My neighbor's running a short-term rental and I get somebody parking in front of my house and it just really makes me nervous. Did have one couple where they have a shared driveway and the neighbors has a short-term rental and they park and they block the driveway. You know, if it's a neighbor living there, that's one trip to the neighbor. Knock, knock, please don't block the driveway. It's a short-term rental. It's always a new tenant. Then it's a weekly occurrence. And this couple is really fed up with that. So
Can I go back to the previous slides? I apologize, I wasn't
No, that's
fast
okay.
enough on the draw. Do they have to prove this annually?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to verify.
Yeah, when they do their renewal, they have to show that they're still living there.
I gotta ask you a question about, so you said driver's license, utility bill, tax return, those, so they just gotta come up with 3.
Mm-hmm.
How does that prove that they live there? I mean, if they're still paying the utilities, I mean, a
Mhm.
short-term rental, they're gonna pay the utilities anyway. And their driver's license, I mean, that, they could have that on there. I guess, I just don't know how that verifies that.
It's just evidence that shows it is. They could be lying. That doesn't prove beyond, a shadow of a doubt that they live there. But what else do you do?
Well, that's what I was thinking. I'll keep thinking.
Okay.
And we just appreciate that 5% that actually do go to apply. So
Yeah.
you're like, want to make it easier, not harder for them. I don't know, to actually get the license. The chicken and the egg situation.
So on the parking, so what we're proposing is a requirement that the guests must park on the property. You got to put that in your lease agreement. Not parking on the street, not parking down the street, not parking in front of the neighbors. And that would be the owner's responsibility for that. So if we got a complaint that you got short-term rental and the renters are parking in front of the neighbor's property, it would be a violation of the property owner. Not because we can't tag the vehicle because it's legal. It is legal to park on the street.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, how do you enforce that?
We would require the owner to keep a register with the license plates of the vehicles of the visitors. And so we get those complaints, we would talk to the owner and say, hey, we got this complaint.
I just think the street is a public use. I don't think you can say who can park there or not. I mean, I just don't get that unless you put like a permitted sign or something. Like, how can you say who can
What's a
park on the street or
permitted
not?
Parking, you know,
Yeah,
you have to have a permit to park in this zone.
or some, I mean, so,
You're not proposing that.
no, but I'm saying, how do you do it if it's not something like that? I just
Yeah.
don't understand how that would work.
Yeah, the way we'd propose it is if we got a complaint that a vehicle is out there, we could identify that that vehicle is a guest at the short-term rental, then that would be a ticket to the operator, because they're supposed to tell their tenants and they're supposed to enforce it that they don't park on the street. That's the proposal.
So someone would call in about it to the police. Someone's parking on my street that shouldn't be, or it's the ADU or whatever, or the short-term rental. And then the police would have to go through your office to verify. I mean, I guess it's.
They
still
go
the
through
same
code
process.
enforcement.
Why, how that would work. I
That
mean,
would-
that seems very
It would only
complicated.
work if we had their license plate,
Right,
right? If they,
and if it was a licensed
if we didn't have their
place.
license
So we're
plate,
punishing the people that actually are trying to
it wouldn't.
follow the law instead of, I don't know. I just don't know about that.
I think we're trying to get the owner to become responsible for his property.
Yes.
And take ourselves out of the policing of the issue. That's how I'm
That's-
understanding.
I
That's-
hear you, but we will have this huge process of figuring out how to enforce it.
Yeah.
And we all the time do not pass ordinances that we cannot enforce. But in this case, we're doing some kind of special runaround that we have to go police this. So that's just my argument, is like, there's all kinds of things that we don't create ordinances for that we say we can't monitor. Our police have a call rate that's the most in the state, basically, but then we're gonna do this for like however many properties have actually licensed, which is like 10 or something, right? You're saying 5% of them,
Yeah, there's probably 20 or so.
maybe 20 properties. So,
Can we
I'm just
have,
saying, it sounds like something really impossible for a
Yeah.
very small group of people.
we have Chris here and I keep getting making some eye contact. Can we invite Chris? Can you come up and just talk about how this would be through code enforcement looked at? Is that okay? Thank you. What's being proposed, how you would see that as enforced?
As far as enforcement goes, with that, as long as we have it documented, and it is exactly on the property owner that's operating a business in the city that has the documentation of their visitors. Now, as you register for whatever company they decide to go through, there is an option to put make, model, style, license plate of your vehicles. They're required to keep that. All we're doing is reinforcing what Airbnb or VRBO is already requiring you to do at the same time. So we are putting that on the property owner, period. And just trying to go that route. So, as far as it being enforceable with us, it takes place not on the first complaint, not on the second complaint. As you start getting into 3, 4, 5 complaints, it's what exactly we wanted to stay away from. It's now not becoming a short-term rental. It's becoming an event place. It's becoming a party house and everything. And that's exactly why we did want to involve Sarah in it, is that we're not conflicting. We want to stay away from an event party places. And this is just one of those ways that gives us the extra ordinances to be able to effectively enforce the ordinances. And it's not about once again, it's not about the onesies, twosies. It's about the long-term problems, and we try to get them shut down. So it's not about the innocent ones. It's the ones to give us teeth to be able to get those other properties shut down. And this would do it.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think we should do it the other way. So a licensed person can actually have parking on the street, but if we catch one that isn't, then we have to, then that's, I think
Add
it's an
that wrinkle.
incentive.
Yeah.
To
So I-
become a licensed.
That's, I mean, I don't know how we would do it,
I
but
don't-
that's what I was
I don't
thinking.
know
If there was a
exactly
way
what-
when you registered, if it gave you, like up on my neighborhood, because of the college, they have permits to park on the street there.
Right.
And I mean, I get, somebody comes in, says, I wanna rent out my house. We don't go up there now and say, okay, now this is only parking by permit. But I think those that register, we could give permits to allow them to park on the street. And then they know if there's a problem. But I agree.
It's just very,
I wholeheartedly agree with
it's
where
just
Andrew was
complicated,
going.
you know, I think it's just complicated because I feel like, and I totally get your point. And as it becomes a bigger issue, or if there's another way that we can enforce, then I think it's different, but it's sort of disincentivizing someone from actually going through the process of getting licensed. Because we can't, they're only gonna wait to see if they get caught on the other side versus like if you're a homeowner, you could have a party every day of the week and have people parked all over the street and no one can say whether you can do that or not.
Understand that.
So anyway, it just becomes a little bit complicated to me that we're punishing sort of specific people that actually are trying to follow the law, you know, I don't know.
To
It's
kind of paint the picture, so there are 27 business licenses with short-term rentals, with over 350 of them have been documented being in the city by Granicus. So what we start with that, once that information is given to us by Granicus, then we send out a notice saying that you are required to register your business, obtain a business license through Ogden City. So that gets the business license fee, registration, inspection of the home, which is most important. And then if they choose not to, then we move to notice of violation. We move to a 125 citation, a 250 citation, and then a $500 citation. And then we take it down that road further if we need to. But either way, there is accountability to the property owners for operating a business. And it's good for the ones that have it going, do it now legally. We appreciate that. But yet we've also got the tools in place to have it for those that are choosing not to obtain a license. So
I just have a follow-up though. How many do we think there really are in the city? Because I think there's 350 in my neighborhood.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how many are there really?
I would dare, I'm gonna go with the number that Granicus gave us.
Okay.
Because that's the only number that I can technically go off of.
Mm.
If there are more, then that is great. That gets more business licenses coming in. But I wanna focus on something that, you know, if we do have people that are renting out their homes, short-term rentals that are endangering the public, that's kind of that's the issue. I mean, I just went on one last week in your neighborhood that they were renting out their basement and they had windows that were not adequate.
Mhm.
And those are the kinds of things that we're really wanting to support our homeowners, our business owners, and the visitors that come into Ogden so that they can make sure that they're safe. That way we don't have to become a news story. So,
No, and I just want to reiterate, I'm not against enforcement. I'm just saying that when we go down this track, it seems like we're sort of, I don't know, inhibiting people further from getting licensed. And it's very hard to enforce, you know, that we were
Yeah, that's
talking
cool.
about. Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a way to monitor this or if there's a way to track this. I was just curious if you would know of the however many we have that have business licenses, did they come in voluntarily or did they come in after after
discovered.
we found out about
Yeah.
it? Who,
I-
like, for the most part, who's coming in and doing them?
I would dare say in the last few years that I've been involved with code services, that probably half of those were brought in after communication with them or complaints.
Okay.
But now that Granicus we kind of just started leading the way in that, and even the state and everyone else is buying off on those services now. everybody sees it an issue. And so trying to come up with the best ways that we can possibly have to be able to support those that want to go by the law and those that don't. And it's a fine line in between, and sometimes the hard ones for us to be able to deal with too, let alone you as elected officials. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
thank you.
All right. Back to the presentation.
All right. Parties is another thing that that you deal with. And yes, I had a Super Bowl party and I had friends over and we did that. But
Yeah, that was amazing.
yes,
Yeah.
this was mine.
Yeah.
I'm on the skateboard on it. That's me. And I think the main difference is if it's a short-term rental, you could have the party every week, every month, twice a week, 3 times a week. Whereas, I'm gonna have Super Bowl party once a year. I can tell you that. So,
I live by Weber State. I do have it every night.
so our proposal is that we only allow registered guests on the property. So, this is just another enforcement tool that if we get complaints where there's big parties going on and disrupting the neighborhood, and you've got guests that aren't in that registered tenants, that could be a citation. And no event, you can't advertise that this is going to be, our big Super Bowl party, and we're going to rent out the house and get 40 people there. So that's the proposal. Another change we're proposing, addressing the housing crisis. As state is very short on housing. Housing's become very unaffordable. It's hitting Ogden very sharply because we don't have a whole lot of single family homes. We're not building anymore. And so if you want to buy a home, it's really at a premium. And what we see on a weekly basis, if not daily basis, is a home will hit the markets. Someone will come into the office and say, can I buy this and use it as a short-term rental? And what that does is it just eliminates one more single family home from our housing stock. And so to address that, we're proposing that we have a 3-year ownership requirement before converting to a non-owner occupied short-term rental. So if you want to buy the house, you want to move in, live there for 3 years, you want to rent it out for 3 years, that's great. And then you want to do as a short-term rental, that'd be fine. But to kind of avoid this market of where I'm buying it only with the intent of doing a short-term rental. And
Why 3 years? Where did that number come from?
a lot of debate. The Planning Commission actually had a lot of debate about that. It was intended to make sure that person is sincerely buying it to be a long-term occupant, and that it's really after a period of time that, okay, now, we're gonna move to Arizona, but we want to just use this as a short-term rental, so that they're really sincere. 3 years is, other communities do 3 years. I think Weber County has 3 years. So we're modeling it off of that. And I would say the Planning Commission had a lot of debate. Should it be 18 months? Should it be 2 years? Should it be 1 year? And ultimately they landed on 3 years. They didn't discuss 5 years.
They're long.
Yeah. And then as we really wanted to focus on these residential neighborhoods, because we got through this, we also realized that per code, you can't do them in downtown. And there's a desire to keep out the bad and let in the good. So downtown really wasn't an issue because you can do a hotel downtown because it's a commercial zone. The downtown code requires the hotel to have 16 or more rooms and an on-site manager. And we ran into some that had some smaller units that had less than 16 rooms, and there was a desire to do short-term rentals in those, and code doesn't allow those. So we had a lot of discussion with the Visit Ogden and people who own units downtown and trying to figure out what would work. One of the big issues we had just comes down to management. It's the same sort of issues you have in residential zones with parties and noise and drinking and illegal activities. The big difference is, if I'm going to a hotel and I'm bringing a keg and 15 people with me and I'm walking by the front desk, they're going to flag it. Whereas a short-term rental, I might just get a code on my phone to unlock the door. There's no manager there. There's no one watching what can go on. And we just see a big potential for these sort of issues without any sort of on-site manager there. We also have the issue of apartments. We have several apartments complexes downtown where a tenant has advertised their unit as a short-term rental. Not legally, but they do it. And our concern with that is, you have person in unit 210, that's where they live. That's, they get up in the morning early, they go to work, and, they want calm. And then unit 211 next door is a short-term rental. They're coming and going, they're, staying up late, they're having parties, things like that. So is it a place to live, or is it just a place where people come and go? And so we struggled with this issue and come up with something that there's a lot of agreement on, is that if you have an apartment unit with 10 or fewer units, that we would allow that to be, you could register each unit as a short-term rental, so you wouldn't have to have a owner operator on site, but you must operate them all as short-term, so that they're furnished apartments. There's no 6-month leases. There's you could have somebody rent it month to month. We do have people who work at the Hill Air Force Base, and they're on a contract. They live there for 3 or 4 months, and they like to use these. So that would all be allowed, but you would be in an environment where it's short term. So you just know that your neighbor's going to be coming and going every night, and so that you're in an atmosphere that's more like a hotel. And that if it's 11 or more units, we'd say you can't do individual short-term rentals, but you could do as a hotel where you have a manager. Basically, if you do 11 or more, you have to have a manager on site, but not these onesies or twosies where one unit on a floor is short-term rental. And then the rest, there's just lots of clarification on standards and procedures and language there. So the Planning Commission had recommended approval of this, and before you know.
Okay. And I know we had asked about some maybe legislative updates, which I
Yeah.
see in there. And can we invite Sarah to come up now just to make the clarification between the TRT versus the licensing, and then while you're up here, if there's anything you want to comment on with the legislative, because I know you've been down there. This is Sarah Tolliver for those listening online. So
Yes, the MLB bill just dropped on my way in the door, so I'm trying to navigate it. So just to clarify what was brought up, and I think the combination of your two questions early on is obviously with such a minimal percentage of the short-term rentals in the city being licensed, the city is definitely missing out on those licensing fees or any permitting fees that would go along with that. But from a transient room tax collection perspective, you were right, Councilmember Taberka, that the platforms collect the transient room tax and remit it to the state. So we do know that there are a small percentage of short-term rentals that market on maybe KSL or Facebook Marketplace or whatever, and so those are different. but the vast majority are marketing themselves on Airbnb, Vrbo, HomeAway, et cetera. One, because of the number of eyeballs being generated at that space, but two, those platforms also provide some insurance benefit to the property owner. So there's a lot of incentive to go through those platforms, and then they are remitting to the state. The only challenge that we do have is that there is a lump sum remitted by Airbnb to the state, and then they remit it to Weber County, Ogden City, the appropriate municipality. And there's no way to get separate addresses out of those. So we couldn't, theoretically, the state tax commission can ask for that to be audited, but it's never been done. So there isn't a way to go back and re-verify that, a point for point allocations happening. I did want to say a little something to your point too about the not well language. And Chris can speak much better to this than I can. The not well language, as it's referred to, is the language in the state legislature that says you can not solely use an online platform for account enforcement sake, but it is one of the items you can use if there are others. So if a call was made to complain about noise or garbage or parking or whatever, and it's a filed complaint, that address verification that's coming through Granicus can be added to it. So there are now two complaints or two notification mechanisms.
Thank you. All right, sit tight, or I stay with us. I don't know. Anyway, stay with it. I'll tell you anyway. Legislative update.
Legislation. So there are two bills, actually three bills dealing with short-term legislation or short-term rental legislation. There's one, it's House Bill 180 from Benyon. This would require that cities regulate short-term rentals, that we require that you have a local contact within a 1-hour drive. They require owner education. There's maximum occupancy limits. So a lot of it is similar to what you would require in your zoning ordinance. It's just the state telling you you have to have those things in the zoning ordinance. My understanding, this bill isn't moving. The League of Cities and Towns was neutral on this bill. And then there are two more, but they just really dealt with the taxation part more than the land use part. House Bill 32 addressed how you do property taxes on a short-term rental, and then 558 just modifies the transient room tax collection for smaller cities, so that doesn't affect Ogden. That's my understanding what's percolating in the legislature now.
Anything else
There's
to add?
also an RFA by Representative White to do statewide address identification, because some of the feedback from the smaller communities is they can't afford a service like a Granicus or a GovOS. So there is an administrative fee that's collected by the state tax commission currently. Just like everything, right? When they collect these transient room tax dollars, they hold back an administrative fee before distributing it out to the municipalities. That is in a restricted account that can only be utilized for certain things. This statewide address identification would fall under allowable uses for those funds. So they have actually supported the use of the funds for this purpose. And what it would mean for us here is that the state would contract with a firm like Granicus or GovOS, or there's a few others, for that statewide address identification. The discussion, this hasn't been outlined yet, but the discussion is that then cities, counties could opt in for that address identification service. We're currently already paying for it out of Ogden City, so this would now become a included and available service that the state is providing. And then the city could choose if they wanted to add on some of those additional services those vendors provide, like some of the letter sending or enforcement capabilities. There's a whole, package that they offer, so that it makes it more affordable for all municipalities, because the state's absorbing that foundational address identification layer.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I just have a follow-up question, but I don't know who it's for. So if we're gonna utilize the Granicus to, send letters to the 350 that we've identified, is that allowable without the other complaints, I guess? Or does it have to be along with a different complaint?
We could have just shared chairs.
Sorry, yeah, we can
Um,
bring another chair over.
So the way that that will work, we can use the Granicus
Just
information.
by itself.
Yeah,
Okay,
we can, and it's just to alert that you are required to have a business license in Ogden City to be able to have a short-term rental.
okay.
And thank you for bringing that up, Sarah. Working with Granicus, there are a lot of different levels of that service that you can choose. We chose to keep it as simple as possible because we do have such a strong code services department that is able to send the letters, send the information, keeping it as simple as possible and consistent with our enforcement of other ordinances. That way we never got down a different track on that. So.
Cool. All right, so that was a lot of really good discussion on this item. This is set to come to us on March 12th. So before that comes to the council, we'll probably want to have maybe some other discussions. So I've got some notes about some of the things that we were sort of working through. But anything else want to comment on that?
So we actually won't have a meeting before the 12th.
Right,
So if
that's
you want
true.
additional discussion, we may want to add it to a work session again and then schedule it for action. But that's
Okay.
just a recommendation or consideration.
So we'll talk about it in leadership, and if there's anything that you feel like we need to add to the discussion on this, let's get that back so we can see if we needed to add another work session on this one.
I guess I really don't know maybe I'm naive. I am absolutely naive. I'm still maybe. I don't understand why the legislature made it so difficult to find these people to do the thing. Does anybody know? I don't get it.
Let's say property rights.
Yeah.
Just because that's who's right on the legislature, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I imagine one of their constituents got a ticket and complained.
Yeah. All right. Vice Chair, did you have something you were gonna say? Okay. All right, thank you. Barton, up next, we have Brandon Ripien, our senior planner, to come up and talk to us about a proposed creation of a flex industrial zone. Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you, council. So, this evening, I'd like to talk to you about a proposal to create a new zone called the Flex Industrial Zone. Just to let you know, we do have Jake Jackson from Acilia Investments and Mike Nichols from Kemp family. So they're representing this, I guess, petition. So just to give you some background, originally Acilia Investments proposed to make some amendments to the AC or the airport commercial zone. So that's where this petition originally started. The original proposal was to make some modifications to a couple of land uses. So one was the proposal to allow a building to have, or the entire building, or up to, I guess, 100% of the floor area to be used as manufacturing space to do refining, processing and assembling, those types of uses. And then the other request was to allow for buildings that are 50,000 square feet or less to be used as storage or for warehousing and distribution. So that was the original proposal, was to modify the airport commercial zone. And the Planning Commission provided a positive recommendation. And then the City Council on March 7th, so almost about a year ago, March 7th of 2023, you reviewed this proposal for the AC zone. And after reviewing the proposal and looking at the AC zone comprehensively around the airport, the decision was made to, or I guess you encourage the applicant to propose something other than an amendment to the AC zone. So the applicant has decided to create a new zone called the Flex Industrial Zone. And I guess let me show you real quick. Actually, this is on the next slide. So the property that they would like to, I guess, rezone to the Flex Industrial Zone is property that's just south of the Ogden Hinckley Airport. It's west of the Kemp Jet Services and the Northrop Grumman offices. So the way this would work, if the council decides to adopt the new zone, the applicant would be required to then go through a rezone. So this wouldn't necessarily place that zone on the property. It would make this zone available for the property owner to apply the zone to this property or other properties throughout the city. So the flex zone, I just wanted to kind of give you some background. So the purpose of the flex zone is to provide a zone that allows for commercial uses as well industrial type uses and retail sales as well. So it is a very flexible zone that allows a lot of different types of uses, and it's become very popular probably in the last I would say 5 to 7 years. And the reason it is popular is because the zoning allows for a wide variety of uses, and the development is created so that you have large open spaces. So if someone wants to divide up the building and they use a portion for retail, another portion for warehousing, they can do that until their business maybe expands and they need to adapt that space. So it's popular because it allows businesses to grow as they continue to develop. I guess some characteristics. So highlighted here, I have the district could allow, or sorry, the zoning district could allow for limited industrial uses, warehouse and distribution, indoor commercial, construction contractor, trades, and commercial sales and services. So those are the types of uses that typically occupy these types of spaces. Oh, one thing I did want to touch on, I think it is important to note that the flex industrial zone would allow for some light manufacturing, but it would be limited as far as the zone would not allow for uses that create noise, dust, fumes, odors, and those types of nuisances. So that would not be allowed with it. And as I said before, this type of zone allows for they're called flex buildings, but they provide large open spaces where the business can adapt the space as they need it. So it's convenient we've even seen, spaces used for training. So like sports training, some will use it for CrossFit, but others use it for warehousing and assembly. So there are a ton of different uses that these spaces are used for.
Brennan?
Yes.
If I might, since we're looking at this because of the Kemp property,
Mm-hmm.
and it's adjacency to the airport.
Mhm.
It would seem like we would want to make sure that there aren't uses that would be incompatible
Okay, yeah,
with, like, a runway protection zone and, or a height limitation that might be a problem for an approach
Mhm.
or different things of that nature, maybe find somewhere else.
right.
But, I think we want to make sure we don't inadvertently create a problem.
Okay.
And I don't know what that might be. You know, I'm not-
Yeah, I mean, we do have height limits, which is very
Mhm.
important. There's a 50-foot height limit in this zone. It is similar to the light manufacturing zone, M1.
Mhm.
But yeah, there are things, building materials that could be reflective, those types of things, right?
Yeah, I think, I think where this is a private property owner owns this property, they ought to be able to do what they want with their property to earn, make a return, give a return on investment. But I think we have erred in the past in a few cases. I mean, US Foods caused a problem for an approach that we don't have an ability to have it now,
Mhm.
into runway 21. And so, and this, this property is very adjacent to runway 17. So now it's probably on the other side of the building, so it probably wouldn't be a problem for that, but it's kind of getting over there to runway 3 also.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure we don't overlook something that
Okay.
way.
Yeah, definitely.
And where this could go anywhere, I don't know if you want to exclude it just here or,
Okay.
or in the zone generally.
And I just looking at the permitted uses, but like fumes or garbage or things that
Mm.
can attract birds and things like that. It looks
Well,
like
birds
those
be
are-
a real problem.
yeah, but it
for
does
sure.
look like that it's not permitted.
Yeah.
Right, those types of things, like you said, fumes and,
The thing that probably
Vegetation
makes me the
would be
most
one.
concerned is height, probably as much as anything,
Mhm.
you know.
Right, so the airport does have, I'm not certain on the term, Hill Air Force Bases was the accident potential zone, but basically an area that is, designated where you can't have certain heights based on a projected space. So I'm certain that Ogden Hinckley has that same requirement. So anything inside that space would not be allowed.
I wonder if maybe a little chat with Salt Lake Fisville might be an appropriate thing with respects to the uses that
Hmm.
we've listed.
I'm sorry, Councilman Hire, chat with whom?
Salt Lake Flight Standards District Office,
FISDO.
Wisdom.
Thank
FISDO,
you.
okay.
Okay, no, that's good. Okay.
Brandon, can I ask,
Yeah,
is this,
you bet.
does this fall within an area that's identified as the airport master plan? Does this fall within the master plan?
It does.
Okay.
Mhm.
And the way I'm reading this, what's allowed or would be allowed in the zone, we can have everything in there from automobile and RV restoration to tire stores and quickie marts, right?
Tire stores that are, it may fall under that. Okay,
I think it did say
okay,
that. And, we can have cabinetry shops.
right,
and,
that's true.
we can't have outdoor RV storage, but can we have indoor RV storage? And we've had discussions in the city around, do we need to dedicate more scarce land in the city of Ogden to storage facilities that are rather static in their use? What I'm kind of getting at here is, are we, even though it's stated within the report that this land has sat vacant for many years, at some point in time, will we be sorry that we deviated from what's defined as airport use within the master plan? And how does airport management feel about this proposal? Have they been involved in this discussion at all?
Can I,
Yeah. Oh, go
that
for it.
also is a concern that I brought up with Martin Glenn and even the petitioner, that I think where we're getting ready to do a general plan, we don't currently have a airport district. We have an airport plan, but it's a little different than a district plan would be. And I think we do need to have something that defines just what you just said. That in this area that we call the airport, or it's bound by these roads. So inside the roads boundary needs to be focused on aeronautical uses where possible. Now, this is a little bit different at least in my mind, where they've got a property, private property. It's not city owned, it's private property. If you believe in property rights, you kind of think, well, I gotta be able to do something here that makes them some money. And that's kind of what I would say, but I certainly wouldn't say it would be the highest and best use because it is adjacent to the airport. So I think it's gonna have to be a discussion that happens around the general plan and, that redo. That's my thinking, and I don't know if that answered your question at all, but
Yeah, so
I was gonna say, yes, we have had discussion with airport management on this. And the airport master plan shows that this is an area that the city ought to look to acquire this piece of property. And if we do that, then we get to do what we want on it. If we don't do that, then it's private property and they have rights to do it. The airport manager would love to acquire it and use this for airport related uses. But the ultimate deciding point is, it hasn't been developed in a long time. Nobody's really beating down the door to build an aeronautical facility there. There is a lot of land on the airport. That's why we felt comfortable saying, yes, we ought to allow this sort of use on the.
And it does allow for aeronautical type uses, so it doesn't restrict that from occurring. But it allows other options as well. Any other questions or comments? Okay. And we do have the, Mike Nichols and Jake, if you have any questions for them, so. So we did list all the different uses that could be allowed or either as permitted or conditional. So a restaurant, this says cabaret, but really it's a restaurant that allows for live music. It's so that's something that could be allowed. Restaurants are typically allowed in business parks, so that was kind of the idea. Is some use like that could be compatible with the business park. Indoor recreational businesses are popular in flex industrial type developments. And then indoor entertainment. So there are a variety of things. Outdoor entertainment, so that could be limited based on noise and fumes and those types of issues. The types of uses that would not be allowed: an outdoor gun range, sexually oriented businesses. These would not be allowed. Institutional uses, so there are a variety of institutional uses that could use this space. Educational institutions is a popular one. Manufacturing, so again, we would allow for manufacturing, but it would not be allowed to create noise, smells, smoke, and create those types of nuisances. And we would limit the outdoor storage area, so not more than 25% of the space could be used for outdoor storage. And food products, that would be a conditional use because of the potential of a nuisance if it's, meat packing or a similar use. Cannabis would not be allowed. That was one that we took out. Another use that could be allowed is personal hygiene, cosmetic products, and pharmaceuticals. And then we also added, that it would also all have to be conducted within an enclosed building space, and all compressors, equipment would also have to be enclosed, so as to not create a nuisance of noise. And we also propose to permit the non-human consumption or products that are non-human consumption. So that could be, things that are, well, not consumed by humans. So,
Talking dog food, cat food, what are you talking about?
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that could fit. Yeah, basically products that, are not for human consumption. But yeah, I guess that could fall under that.
Okay.
And this was a definition or a use that was originally in the land use table. So this is not something that we've created. This is just a land use that has existed. Manufacturing, so metal uses, so basically cutting, casting, refining, assembling of metals. So this is just similar to your light manufacturing uses. And again, we limit the flex zone to 25% outdoor storage. And we also limit, the percentage in the row below that restricts what percentages are allowed as outdoor storage. Non-metals, so those could be things like composites or woodwork, could be permitted. And again, this is in the land use chart. It just again states that manufacturing cannot produce things that would cause a nuisance. And then-
It seems arbitrary to me.
It is arbitrary. Or which part?
Well, the things that you can and the things you can't, it seems pretty arbitrary. It doesn't seem like it follows any pattern that I can recognize.
Well, I mean, part of that's probably just the way that the original land use table was created. Because there is a lot of crossover. So we added text to clarify different areas, and there were some areas that we did cross out. But a lot of the original uses we just kept. Things that would not be allowed. So things such as, well, let's see, raw materials, so concrete mixing, bricks, those types of uses, raw organic materials such as wood or plants. So manufacturing those. We would also not allow for excavation, so mining, those types of uses. We would allow as a permitted use like a night watchman or caretaker's unit. And then sales. So this is something that's a little different from the M1 zone. So the flex industrial would allow for up to 50% of the space to be used for sales, and also for preparing and serving food and drink. As a conditional use, an establishment that is engaged in selling within the enclosed building of goods and merchandise. Medical cannabis, so that would be a pharmacy type use. And then conditional use for general and aviation fuel storage. There was a question on that that the council staff had. So because it is adjacent to the airport, the applicant would like the ability to sell general fuel and aviation fuel, as well as have the ability to store planes if the opportunity occurs. And then there are a lot of these uses actually just apply to a specific zone. So like the DDR zone. Yeah, so these would not apply to the flex zone. And as I said before, the other, let's see, for sales, so you'd have retail sale of motor or aviation fuels. So that could be a gas station that could be allowed in the business park. And also an establishment which is for sale of building materials. So that could be a construction for
Can I
construction
ask a
materials.
Question about the fuel sales?
You bet.
So I'm unclear. So they can do that in what you're suggesting?
Yeah, so for the flex industrial, it would allow for the sale of aviation fuel as well as general fuel.
So I mean, I don't know enough about airports other than I go to them. But don't most airports at our size, don't we make it on the takeoffs and landings and the fuel? Isn't that where we get our funding from?
Yeah, there is fuel that's sold at the airport.
So if we take away from that,
We're still a wholesaler of the fuel to the people who retail it. If I understand this correct.
so would we be the wholesaler to this one?
I think,
I guess what I'm doing is, I mean, there's only it just seems like I usually say there's a bigger pie to this, but it seems like we only have one pie and we're taking away part of the pie. Allowing that, so I just am curious why, I mean, I understand why they would want to, but I don't understand why
Yeah.
we would allow that.
Well, maybe, I don't know if Jared, if you have anything that you'd like to say pertaining to it.
yeah, somebody knows better than I do, I'm sure. So.
Sorry, I was responding to another email, so I didn't hear the exact
Sorry.
question, but in regards to fuel,
Yeah,
Yeah, my question is that I
Off-site
think
fuel.
that the majority of our income from the airport comes from takeoffs and landings and fuel
yeah,
sales.
so fuel flowage fees, yeah, so we
Fuel
do.
flowage fees.
So we do make money off of fuel flowage fees that go through that. So as far as the fuel sales and things like that go, the FAA prohibits us from, if the owner of an aircraft wants to fuel their own aircraft, they absolutely can do that. If the owner themselves or their hired employee is not fueling the aircraft, then they would go through an FBO on the airport, and that takes care of those flowage fees. That gets reported back to us. So I'm just reading that section where you're talking about the fuel, so
I
you're
guess so what I'm asking is, does it take part of the pie away?
No.
They can still do it on their own.
If the owner of the aircraft is fueling their own aircraft, they already have the right to do that. So if they bought fuel that was offsite and brought it in and fueled their own aircraft, they can already do that. But if they're not fueling their own and they're buying fuel, then they have to buy it through one of the FBOs on the field.
So this doesn't replace an FBO, what
No.
could it potentially replace?
Threaten an
Just
FBO.
Does
right?
say retail sale. I don't know if that makes a difference.
So they
That's what I
wouldn't
meant.
be selling aviation fuel in that business park unless they had through the fence agreement then, right? With the FAA? I mean,
Well, we would, I mean, you would have to be an FBO to be selling fuel on the field.
there you go. Okay, yeah, that answered the question.
and again, this would, depend on whether or not someone wants to do this use. So it's not something that is a guarantee, of course. But the applicant does want the opportunity for that to happen. Any other questions? Thanks, Jared.
No, thanks, appreciate it.
Okay. Drinking establishment, so this is just conditional use, which is basically a restaurant. I don't know, do you want me to go through all of these uses, or have you had the opportunity to go through them? Okay,
So Brandon, I do have one question about one of the definitions or uses, and I looked for it.
Okay.
I recorded it as on page 84, but there's only 84 pages on this, and it's not there.
okay.
It spoke of a lot without a main building. Does that ring a bell with you?
Lot without a main building.
Like it defined a use of a lot without a main building, and I was just curious
Is
as
that
to
part
what
of
that
the
might be.
manufacturing?
We have the same thing in our zones. You can't have a house, you can't have a garage without a house.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't have the
So I think that's
accessories
kind of what
without
you're
the,
talking about, right?
I don't know.
RV storage lot where you're just parking RVs out there, or
Outdoor storage.
I'm not recalling where that.
Okay,
is.
well, I'm not finding it either, so
Okay, sorry.
it was early this morning. I might have been sleep reading.
Okay. So, I guess just basically to summarize, so I don't go through all of the different uses. So really the flex industrial, so it would allow a lot of the same uses that are allowed in the M1, the light manufacturing. It does allow more retail sales than the M1 would allow, as well as some commercial uses such as a restaurant or a convenience store, and then some aviation type uses, so such as aircraft fuel, storage of an airplane, and as well as restoration of aircraft parts. So those are just some of the uses. So I'll just go through these. Warehousing and distribution, that was another one that was different than the M1 zone. And then these are the site development standards. So they match the M1 zone almost exactly. So the minimum lot size would be 3,000 square feet. Lot dimension, so the minimum lot width would be 40 feet wide. There's no limit to impervious surface. The maximum building height would be 50 feet, similar to the M1, or just like the M1. And then the setbacks are the exact same as the M1, so 10-foot front setback, 10-foot side setback. And then if it's adjacent to a residential home or an O1 zone, there would be a 20-foot side setback. And then the rear setback would be a 0 setback unless it was adjacent to residential or an O1 zone. It also follows the same outdoor storage requirements as far as buffering and screening as the M1 and M2 zones. And this just also highlights the 25% maximum for outdoor storage. And then also talks about general contractor outdoor storage is also 25%. And then outdoor storage as an accessory use is 25%. And if there happen to be special events or live entertainment or performance type businesses, there are restrictions that they have to meet to make sure that they are compatible with adjacent uses. And we already touched on this about the noise, smells, smoke products. And then we also, it would match the same architectural building and design requirements as the M1 and M2 zones that you recently adopted. And then there are also restrictions on shipping containers and how those can be used. And those also match the M1 and M2 zone. And yeah, this touches on how how it will be compatible next to residential.
Brandon,
And yes,
do we have to, do we ever look at like the weight of the trucks going in and out and whether the street can support that or the width of the street can support that or anything?
yeah, so the traffic engineer would review that to make sure that the road is built. So there could be a limit on the weight of the trucks that could come in and out of that area.
But that's
Yeah.
after we,
That's right. And then this buffer is also the same as the M1 and M2 zones. So that's everything that I have. Any other questions or comments?
I did find that lot without a main building, so,
Thank you.
yes, currently in like our M1 and M2 zones, you can have a storage lot for finished manufactured products assembled in Ogden city limits. And so we continued that use in the flex zone. You're not allowed to do outdoor storage of just recreational vehicles in this zone.
Is there an example of what that would be? Could this be, somebody that's welding big wrought iron fence assemblies together and they store it outside?
Yes,
And would screening requirements be enforced on that?
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
All outdoor storage requires a 7-foot screen fence or wall.
Okay.
Could be trusses.
I have one more comment, or maybe it's a question. I don't know, but we got to this point because our AC text was somewhat ambiguous, apparently. It was not clear that these manufacturing or industrial type uses were not supposed to happen in the AC zone. And it seems like perhaps as part of this, we ought to fix that verbiage.
Okay.
Since we do have AC zone on property that we don't control at the airport.
We might have to do this separate though, because that was the original petition. We could probably do it as just a city initiated.
Well, how we do, yeah, it'll have to be a city initiated thing, I think, but,
Yeah.
but I think it's important we do it,
Okay, yeah,
unless we find ourselves here again.
right,
You know.
sure. Jake had it.
Yeah.
I know you guys need to jump into another meeting, but I think along those lines, when we initially came in, I think the city has an idea of what you want airport commercial to be, right? And I think we wanted to
Yeah.
come in and modify, just to
Hey,
clarify a few.
would you introduce yourself? for
Oh,
the
sorry,
record?
I'm
So,
Jake Jackson with Acilio Investments,
thank you.
working with the Kemps for this property. And I think when we came in, that was kind of the idea is how do we make this more clear? And frankly, we believe that flex space is something that is very important and can be used throughout the entire city of Ogden. Now, we don't have land particularly that we're thinking about for, but it's a very good use that can allow incubation spaces for up and coming companies to build. Now, when we created this zone, we tried really hard to keep all the AC airport commercial activities in this zone, though it becomes a little ambiguous, as you said, because what are you trying to do? We want to be able to use aeronautical uses in this specific Kemp property, but also to be able to have distribution, light manufacturing, all these items in these small warehouses to allow for this incubation space of smaller up and coming companies.
Yeah.
And to, obviously say no to noises and smells and all this, those items, but to be able to have incubation spaces is essentially our goal. And we felt like we've been able to do that and to make it as concise as possible while allowing aeronautical and because we don't want to take away the aeronautical and we also don't want to take away the ability to create these spaces for tenants.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is also set to come before us on March 12th. So
Chair, if you don't mind if I just
Yes.
interject a little bit. So we've had a bit of a schedule change, so March 19th still works for you guys, right? So we'll have to shift that a little bit if you all are okay moving forward. If you want some more work session time, let us know and we'll schedule that. If you're okay moving forward, if you feel some of these questions can be answered in between that time, or we can have Brandon just report back in the meeting, when it's considered, we can move forward with the March
I would
19th time.
appreciate it being a topic on the work session on the 12th. Just because it'll give us a little time to let these things marinate a little bit, get through
Yeah.
this list of you can and you can't.
So I
that
think
was
the
a giant
petitioners
list.
won't be available on the 12th.
Yeah, it is,
So-
it's huge.
Either we need to have it without them present or, okay. So we can have it back as a work session on the 12th if you
Yeah,
all
I
want.
would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Leadership, you okay with that on the 12th?
Yep, we're good with that.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll adjourn this meeting and move into our city council meeting here in just a minute or two.